Welcome, everyone. I'll call this April 22nd, 2025 meeting of council to order at 5 p.m. This meeting will be held in a hybrid manner where members of council, staff, and the public can participate electronically. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available on the township website. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001, and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, that all information attained is considered part of the public record. All rules apply to the meeting as if everyone is attending in person, and if there is a problem with the technology impacting the proceedings of a meeting, the meeting may be recessed. So at this time, we'll rise for the national anthem. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omama people. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous people, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land, who also make this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Truro Wampum Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. Excuse me. So the first item up is the confirmation of the agenda. There's been no additions or changes. So could I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Broderick, seconded by Councillor Willis. All in favor? Motion is passed. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof for open session this evening? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. If someone could make the motion and read the motion for the record. Loading. Just a sec. Okay. Councillor Willis, do you want to read the motion out, make it, and then Councillor Budrick, you can second it.
I move that council now move into closed session to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual, staffing in Recreation and Facilities Division, and a proposed or pending acquisition of disposition of land by the municipality, potential disposition of land pursuant to section 2392 B and C of the Municipal Act.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Budrick. All in favor? Motion Welcome, everyone. Our meeting started at 5 and we've been in closed session. So we're just reconvened the meeting at 6:05. And we do have a rise and report from being in closed session, and I'm just making sure I got the right notes here. So I'd like to report out that in closed session, we dealt with personal matters about an identifiable individual staffing in the Recreation Facilities Division. And there is a recommendation to come forward as well. I'll read the recommendation and then we'll get a mover and seconder. That the clerk be directed to place the following motion before council for consideration in open session. That the report from the Corporate Services, Strategy and Innovation Department dated April 22nd, 2025, resurplus township lands, Housing Accelerator Fund be received, and that staff review direction from council regarding other vacant or unused township lands and return to a future meeting with recommendations for declaration of surplus properties. Do I have a mover? Councillor Broderick, seconded by Councillor Willis. All in favor? Motion is passed. Next up is presentations. We have recognition certificates on behalf of MVP Rick Bresee to our Loyalist firefighters. And Rick is unable to be here this evening. But his one of his team members, Mark Handley, is here to do it on his behalf. Excuse me. Sorry, my throat is cutting in and out today. So if Mr. Handley, if you would like to proceed. Oh, there's that.
Your MVP Rick Bresee and former mayor here wants to send congratulations to the fire department and especially some select firefighters that were involved in an incident. Unfortunately, he can't be here. He actually had a fall and damaged his knee, and it looks like he's not going to be walking for about 6 weeks. But I told him he was carrying a load of books. Apparently, I told him to take up a safer sport like skydiving or car racing instead of reading. So anyway, he did send this message. We want to honor our firefighters in all they do, and most specifically express our appreciation for their expertise in unusual situations. And thank them always for being there for our community, each other, and for supporting our neighboring municipal fire services, like this recent incident with a car in the Napanee River. They say it takes a village, but with fire services, we extend those boundaries to lend a hand to our neighboring communities as well. Thank you. Great job in the rescue. And there's a certificate for the department here. And the certificate reads, "Congratulations on behalf of the Government of Ontario. I am pleased to extend my sincerest congratulations to Loyalist Township Fire and Emergency Services in recognition of the bravery and dedication expressed during the water rescue that took place at Springside Park on March 22nd, 2025. Through your skill, determination, and quick response, you demonstrated the true spirit of service, ensuring the safety of those in need. Your efforts are deeply appreciated and will be remembered as a testament to the life-saving mission you uphold." Signed, Rick Bresee, MPP, Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. So would the chief like to take this certificate? And also there's certificates for the individual firefighters involved. How many are here today? Are there 5 of you? And I have them for Adam Irving, Mike Joyce, Jordan McLaughlin, and Joe Rebecca, and John Shea. Have I missed anybody on that list that's here tonight? Or okay, I've got a full pile. I've got 16 of them here. So whoever else is involved, maybe you could just come up and give me your name, and I'll make sure you get the certificates. And is it possible to get a picture as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do, why don't we do the one for the township with you, and
Yeah.
then we can do.
And, this one's for Adam. Is Adam here? Adam.
Great.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And Mike? And Jordan? Joe? Thank you. Next, John? Sorry.
Nick DeMarco.
Okay. Get the extra
Yep,
ones here.
absolutely.
There, Nicholas.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations. Do you want to get it?
Yeah. They're good looking.
Yeah, do you, if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here's your phone back.
All right.
Thank you so much.
There's the whole thing.
Take care of us. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hanley, for taking care of that on behalf of MPP Bresee. I'd just like to comment on behalf of council and the township. This is just one example of what our firefighters do every day for our communities. Not only do they do it here, but they do it in other communities as well when they need assistance. And I think that speaks very highly of the firefighters that we do have and all of the EMS across the county that work hard for everyone. And this is a great example of what they do, putting themselves at risk to be able to help out everyone else that is in need. So kudos to all the firefighters, specifically the ones that responded and took it upon themselves to brave that situation as well. So with that, that completes presentations. The next is statutory public meeting. So I'll just read a preamble why staff are coming forward. A public meeting is being held in accordance with the provisions of section 17-15 and 34-12 of the Planning Act to consider an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment required to support the proposed redevelopment of a subject property municipally known as 5024 Bath Road. The subject lands are legally described as part of Lot 28, Concession Broken Front, Ernestown, designated as Part 1 on Plan 29R 10410, Loyalist Township in the County of Lennox and Addington. The official plan amendment introduces a special policy area in the shoreline residential designation of the Loyalist Township official plan and will be implemented through a zoning bylaw amendment which will rezone the subject property from shoreline residential zone to a shoreline residential exception 11 zone to permit one secondary unit in a detached accessory building or structure as permitted residential use along with introducing necessary performance standards in support of proposed redevelopment. Council shall hear in person or by his or her counsel, solicitor, or agent, any person who claims to be affected by these applications. So welcome, staff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll be giving a quick, brief description on this applications, and it would be followed up by a quick presentation from consultant planners who are present in person. So Fortin Planning Plus Design, on behalf of the owners of the property, has submitted an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application to introduce a special policy area in shoreline residential designation and to rezone the subject lands from shoreline residential to shoreline residential exception 11. The proposed redevelopment of the subject property involves the demolition of the existing dwelling and detached garage. The redevelopment plan includes the construction of a new single detached dwelling and a secondary residential unit in a detached accessory building with an approximate gross floor area of 372 square meters. As a part of the official plan amendment application, special policies are proposed to be introduced in the shoreline residential designation to permit the redevelopment of the site with a single detached dwelling and a secondary unit in a detached accessory building, and to permit one connection to the municipal water main services for water quality reasons. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to permit one secondary unit in a detached accessory building or structure as a permitted residential use, along with introducing required site-specific performance standards to facilitate the proposed development. These applications are subject to the following policy framework, starting from Planning Act to Provincial Planning Statement to both county and township official plan to zoning bylaw of the township. The staff have done a thorough review of the proposed development with the complete planning policy framework and are of the opinion that the proposed development is in conformity with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, both county and township official plans, and the township zoning bylaw, and hence are recommending approval of the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. Thank you.
Thank you. There's going to be a presentation now by from the full time. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending this evening. Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, my name is Nolan Atterbury, and I'm a planner at Foten Planning Design, and I am joined by my colleague Brittany Mulhern, who's an associate at Foten Planning Design. We have been retained by the property owners of 5024 Bath Road in Loyalist Township to present these official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications. The site is located along Lake Ontario and is adjacent to waterfront residential properties to the east and west. The Latham Pools facility exists approximately 400 meters north of the subject site. The subject site has an approximate area of 1.4 hectares with 75 meters of frontage on Bath Road and 76 meters of frontage on Lake Ontario. The subject site is currently developed with a single detached house and a detached garage. Here we have attached some site photos. The top right photo you can see is taken from the shoreline facing the existing single detached house. And the bottom right photo is a photo taken from Bath Road of the existing single detached house. The site is currently designated shoreline residential in the Loyalist official plan. and it's located within the Shoreline Residential Specific Policy Area 3. This specific policy area permits a connection to municipal water services for water quality reasons. The site is currently zoned Shoreline Residential Zone in the Loyalist zoning bylaw, which permits single attached dwellings in some non-residential uses. The intent of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications is to permit the development of a single attached house and a secondary unit within a detached accessory building. The proposed development will be serviced by municipal water services and a private septic system for each dwelling. The applications will also have the effect of establishing a 15-meter vegetative buffer along the shoreline, which will permit 2 access paths. This development will require the demolition of the existing single detached house and detached garage. The archaeological assessment, land use compatibility assessment, and nitrate dilution calculation have been prepared in support of the applications. The archaeological assessment has confirmed that no archaeological resources are present on the site. The land use compatibility assessment confirms that no land use compatibility concerns were found with relation to the Latham Pools facility north of the site. And the nitrate dilution calculation confirms that the proposed septic systems will not result in off-site impacts to adjacent properties or to Lake Ontario. So the zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit a secondary unit within a detached accessory building within a specific policy area. This specific policy area will also permit a connection to water services on the site for water quality purposes. The proposed connection to municipal water services has been conditionally authorized by township engineering staff based on water testing indicating poor water quality on the site. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to permit the detached secondary unit within a shoreline residential exception 11 zone. This exception zone will also permit a maximum building height of 6.1 meters for the detached accessory unit, which is lesser than the maximum height permitted for a single detached dwelling in the shoreline residential zone. The shoreline residential exception zone will also permit or require a maximum total floor area for the secondary unit to be less than that of the principal dwelling. This amendment will also establish the 15-meter vegetative buffer along the shoreline while permitting the 2 paths, 1 for each dwelling. So the provincial planning statement supports all types of residential intensification, including redevelopment, which results in a net increase in residential units. The proposed development is consistent with the provincial planning statement as it supports residential intensification and redevelopment that results in a net increase in residential units through the creation of a secondary unit. Next slide, please. The county official plan broadly permits secondary units, provided 1 unit is located within the principal building. The proposed development conforms to the county official plan with regards to secondary unit policies, and county staff have confirmed that the proposed partial servicing configuration meets the intent of the county official plan. The Loyalist Township official plan encourages low-density residential development in the shoreline residential designation and forms of housing that promote intensification and affordability. The proposed development conforms to the Loyalist Township official plan by providing a secondary unit within a detached accessory building, which supports low-density residential intensification in the shoreline residential designation. The Loyalist official plan also requires a 15-meter vegetative buffer be maintained along the water's edge where no clear cutting is permitted, which shall be provided through the subject applications. In summary, the proposal represents good land use planning as it supports locally appropriate residential intensification through establishing a detached secondary unit on the site. The proposed development is consistent with the 2024 provincial planning statement and conforms to the County of Lennox and Addington official plan and the Loyalist Township official plan. This concludes my presentation, and Brittany and I are available for questions or comments.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions at this time for the consultants? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation, sharing the information. excuse me. So first I'll go in chambers to open it up for public comments, and then I will go to the virtual audience and ask that anyone that wishes to speak in the virtual audience to please use the raised hand feature so we know to bring you into the meeting. So first I'll go in chambers. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, I will go to the virtual audience. If there's anyone in the virtual audience that wishes to speak to this item, please use the raised hand feature and we can bring you into the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Seeing none. That would conclude the public meeting portion then. And we do have a report with a recommendation before us. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move the following recommendation, that the report from the Development Services Division dated April 22nd, 2025, Republic meeting, official plan amendment D09-003-2024, and zoning bylaw amendment application D14-006-2024, 5024 Bath Road be received, and that the application to amend the official plan D09-003-2024 be approved, and that bylaw 2025-34 being a bylaw to adopt Loyalist Township Official Plan Amendment number 50 to create a site-specific special shoreline residential policy area for 5024 Bath Road be enacted and passed, and that the application to amend zoning bylaw D14-006-2024 be approved, and that bylaw 2025-35 being a bylaw to rezone the subject lands from the shoreline residential SR zone to shoreline residential exception 11 SR 11 zone be enacted and passed.
So moved. Do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, any comments from the mover?
Yeah, I would just say that the applicants have met all the requirements as I see, and I wish them well on their endeavor.
Thank you. Seconder, any other? Councilor Willis?
I have a question for staff, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Through the mayor. It's on. Yeah. Shoreline residential is one of the few zones that doesn't allow for secondary units. Is there a reason why that decision was made when we did the official plan and when we did the zoning bylaws?
So maybe through you, Mr. Mayor, I can try to answer that, and Andrea can add to that. The main reason being shoreline residential zone on the mainland, but is also on the Amherst Island, and it's all, over the periphery of the island. That being said, it's very diverse, and everywhere we do not have infrastructure, as in water services and sewer. And because it's shoreline, it falls in a separate zone and designation of itself. But in respect of the services not being able to reach everywhere, and to have, because we have highly vulnerable aquifer across the entire majority area of the entire township. As of right, or through official plan, secondary units have not been permitted in the shoreline residential zone.
Follow up, if I may. So I believe, but I understand, but the reason that staff are recommending this one as opposed to anyone else who has 4 acres of shoreline residential is because there is the access to the municipal water supply. I'm only concerned because we've seen in planning before that we've made these variance decisions and then they get referred to almost as a past precedent and get used by planning consultants to say, you did it here, now you have to do it there. So I just want to be clear that this is because it's got access to municipal water.
Through you, Mr. Mayor to Councillor Willis, it's not just because it has access to municipal water, because we also support detached second units in the rural area and the prime agricultural area as well, which could be on pure well and septic as well. There were a number of reasons at the time when the official plan review was done, why we didn't proceed with the shoreline residential being more permissive that way. There were some concerns expressed from council at the time about potential Airbnbs along the shoreline. So that was a consideration that we wanted to see if how that would play out, and if we were going to start to have some issues like other municipalities were having at the time that our official plan review was done. And because it's on partial service, a lot of the shoreline residential is on partial services. So and the provincial policy statement was previously a little bit more restrictive in terms of the requirements that had to be met to be able to hook up to water, and more limited for new development. So now we're under the new provincial planning statement, which is a little bit more flexible. And the size requirements of this particular property is more what we see in the rural area than a lot of the other shoreline properties as well.
So basically, we are opening it up to people that have properties of adequate size to put secondary units on their properties if they're shoreline residential.
Yes, through you, we generally don't have a concern, and we're going to be bringing as part of the zoning review and some official plan amendment updates to kind of tweak some of that a little bit more with our second units.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for coming back up to answer those questions. Back to the mover. Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Okay. That brings us to open forum. 15 minutes of the meeting is being set aside for open forum. Any individual may address council regarding an item on the agenda, excluding matters under the statutory public meetings section on the same agenda. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. Anyone wishing to speak can register in advance, which we do have some here. And if participating virtually, can use a raised hand feature in Zoom. Today we have actually have 4 that have signed up. So we'll start by calling them up first, and then we will ask if anyone else in chambers or in Zoom would like to address council on a matter on the agenda. So, that's all my papers. Brittany Mulhern. Oh, that was the applicant. Okay. Brittany Veen. Megan. There's in. If you could please just have a seat, just push the button so that the mic turns on, and there is a timer on the screen. When you get close, I'll just let you know you're close so you can wrap up, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm just here to speak on behalf of the Hot to Trot shows this year. We did put in a lot of dates, as you guys can see, and then we narrowed it down to the dates that we would like to go forward with as a possibility. The dates are rain dates. They're not every date was going to be a show. We kind of changed it this year to accommodate our neighbors by going to a Wednesday night jackpot, which would be 2 to 3 hours, and only having 2 weekends this year to accommodate the Friday, Saturday, or the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the Barrel Bash. So this is a little bit more accommodating our neighbors for the sound and allowing them to have our weekends. I'm hoping that you guys didn't receive any complaints from last year, as I didn't receive any complaints, and everything panned out for our decimal readings, and I think that we showed that we were capable of accommodating the show and neighbors at hand. So, yeah.
Thank you. And well within your time limit too. The next one is Mary Jo Muir. Same thing, if you could just make sure the mic is turned on before you provide your information.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to this request for a bylaw amendment. You might recall that last year we had quite the argument about whether this should happen or not. I can tell you that Ms. Desjardins kept her promise. The noise was kept to a reasonable level. It went from intolerable to a little bit annoying. So a little bit annoying is life in the country. And well, I'm very impressed with the work she's done. So I looked at all of the dates that she has in mind. Almost all of them are Wednesday evenings from 5 till 9 p.m., which is well within reason. So I can't say that I speak for all of the neighbors, but I can say for myself, I share a fence line with Megan. She's been a great neighbor this year, and I'm very much in support of what she's doing.
Very good. Thank you. We appreciate you sharing that. So I will just ask in chambers if there's anyone else that wishes to speak under the open forum. Please come forward and you can present to council. Being none, I would go to the virtual audience. If anyone in the virtual audience wishes to speak to council through open forum, please use the raised hand feature so we can bring you into the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Thank you. Well, that concludes open forum. Next up, items for consideration, the 2025 Spring Strategic Plan Update. We have our CIO coming forward. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Do you have some additional information or?
Just some
Would you like to share?
highlights, really. This is the third update report to council since the adoption in 2023 of the new strategic plan that goes until 2027. Attached to the report, you can see our dashboard, which lists all the initiatives that staff are working on. This was developed with council and staff, and I'm pleased to bring to your attention lots of things that have been completed or in progress. There's a few items that are slightly delayed, but they are still in progress. They're just not from the original dates. Staff have been very busy. I'm happy also to report that from the strategic plan in terms of reporting out and publicity, staff promised in that strategic plan to do an annual report of sorts. And attached to the staff report, you'll see an annual achievements report for 2024. This is new. And I want to congratulate the staff in the communications division. They did a fantastic job, I think, in highlighting. And when you put them all together in this format, it really looks pretty impressive in terms of the things that council and staff have been able to achieve in 2024 for our community under each of the pillars of the strategic plan. So I recommend that for everyone. This is going to be sent out to staff, to the public in various ways after tonight's meeting.
Thank you. There has been a lot of work accomplished. There's a lot of items marked off. Council, we do have a recommendation before us. Would someone like to put that on the floor so we can discuss this? Councillor Willis.
I move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer dated April 22nd, 2025, 2025 Spring Strategic Plan update be received, and that council advise staff on any changes and priorities for the remainder of the term.
So moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any comments from the mover?
Only to thank staff for moving forward and accomplishing what they have in the strategic plan, and looking forward to what we can achieve in the next year.
Thank you. Seconder? Any other comments? Councillor Broderick.
I just want to thank CAO and everybody. I come from an education background, and sometimes when you see the spreadsheet here of all the different objectives, et cetera, but then when you go down and see the actual achievements, I see lots of pictures and realize that, hey, we did do some things, or staff did a lot of great things over the year, and I commend them for all that, and I hope that residents take a chance. If they don't want to read the first report, take a look at the annual achievements. But I think there's a lot there that maybe doesn't get recognized. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll just comment before I take it back to the mover for final. When you see it all compiled like this, it is pretty impressive. There has been a lot of work done, a lot of accomplishments made so far this term, and council's very grateful for the amount of work that staff put in to make sure that we do succeed on so many. And the one other comment that I was just going to make, I was having a discussion with the CAO earlier, and there were sort of some comments, and it was like some of them that you see the check mark that it's completed. The work actually isn't all completed yet because there's follow-up work. Anything we initiate and we're successful at means that there's ongoing work to be able to maintain it going forward. So the check marks are really nice, but the other thing to keep in mind for everyone is that there's a lot of staff that are working hard to make sure that not only do we accomplish getting things started or underway, but to maintain them and make sure they succeed in the future. So thank you. So with that, back to the mover for final. Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. And Hot to Trot Stables 2025 noise exemption requests. And the clerk's department come forward. Any additional information at this time?
Through your worship, no additional information, just here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you. So, council, we do have a recommendation before us. There is a couple spots that you can fill in if you, what your preferences are. Councilor Boudreau.
Recommendation from the Clerk's Division dated April 22nd, 2023, IRA Hot to Trot Stables 2025. Noise exemption request be received and that council approve the exemption request for noise prohibition under Activity 2 of Schedule 2 of the noise bylaw for all dates and times listed in Attachment 2 or otherwise as amended.
Okay. And we're not proposing any amendments to the attachment. Okay. So moved. Do we have a seconder? Yeah. Councilor Parks. Mover, any comments?
Just that, it was a little contentious last year and there was no pushback, and the fact that a neighbor came in and spoke this evening to say things had improved is a good moving forward, and the fact that the applicant respected their neighbors, and it sounds great. So I'm happy to see progress.
Thank you. Seconder?
Thank you. I'd just like to share the same sentiments. I think it's great that the owners have taken the initiative to make sure that the neighbors are taken care of and their concerns that they had. Good work.
Other members? Councilor Broderick.
I voted against this a year ago. You remember probably. And I was a little excited when I first saw 57 days. So I'm glad you clarified that, because that makes a huge difference. And again, the fact that your neighbor came in and spoke in favor tells me that everything went well. And I think as a township, we are not in knowledge of any complaints. So wish you well with this, and I'll support it.
Other members? Seeing none? I agree. Back to the mover for final. Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. Additional budget request. It's for 2025-08 County Road 4 Parks Garage Washroom Addition. Staff coming forward, any additional information at this time?
No, your worship, just here to answer questions.
Thank you. We have a recommendation before us. Unless there's questions for clarification only, I would entertain a motion. Question for clarification? Yes.
Again, we're looking at a project that's coming in 100% higher than we budgeted for it. Where are we missing? Like, are construction costs increasing that much that we're having this much of a gap? And I'm only concerned because we approve capital budgets for the year, and we don't seem to be sharp on our costing, or is something happening out there that we don't know about that's causing these increasing costs?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there's obviously all the just general concerns out there about tariffs and things like that. There's general challenges when we're pricing out small works as a smaller municipality. So I can share a little bit about the approach that we took to the estimate and share where, we can look at making changes in the future. The approach that we took with this project specifically was there is a consultant out there, Altus Consulting. They provide a guide every year for square foot estimating. At the time of the project, we knew roughly the size of the facility that we were looking at, so we used the square foot estimating guide for municipal building in the Ottawa region. There's no more granular data. We don't have sort of Loyalist specific data, so we tried to pick the nearest municipality that was available for, and that's how we came up with the cost. We then tacked on a healthy contingency, as we normally do with these things, and that still left us significantly short. So it is challenging because we are trying to use the best data that we have available to us. In this case, we didn't have a architect or design consultant do the project for us. We did it in-house, and that does mean that we lacked some of that expertise, but that expertise also wouldn't have been there when we were putting the budget together. So it's kind of one of those challenges where we're trying to save costs by, instead of paying an architect $30,000-$40,000 to do the project, it means that we don't necessarily have as much detailed information as we would like when we're putting the estimate together. So we're trying to balance all those things out, and unfortunately that put us in the position that we're in.
Your worship,
Yes.
I could also add that with this process having been a competitive process and we received 6 bids, I'd be concerned if we may be only getting 1 or 2 bids that we really missed the mark. But when you're getting 5 or 6 bids out there, and there's quite a wide range actually between the low bid and the high bid, that you can see the volatility in the market as well. It really depends on who's hungry for a project, and sometimes we're right on the mark and sometimes we're not.
Councilor Broderick?
Through your worship, I wanted to, can I draw your attention to page 3? Just sort of the chart there that talks about the costs. Just for my clarification, so the highest bid, 303,000. If this bid was accepted, that's what the company would get?
Yeah, the highest scoring bid price, $303,000. Yes, that would be the contract value that we signed with the contractor.
And then everything below it would be, I guess, assigned to, it would be a payment from the township. Like internally, I'm thinking contingency, administration, design, that's all township. Like if those prices won't go up, I guess is what I'm saying or asking.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, there is some variability in that.
Okay.
They could potentially go up. As with contingency, we're trying to capture sort of those unknowns that we can't
Okay.
necessarily price in. So there's always a risk there. Again, we are following sort of industry best practice, which is to carry 15% contingency on a bid. The contract administration and design costs, the design costs are completed. That's the cost that it took staff to do the design that we tendered out. The drilled well, the well has been constructed already, so that's already been paid out. We haven't put in a pump or well lines or anything, so that's part of the actual bid price. And then security costs, that's for fobs and access controls, and that hasn't been constructed yet either. So it depends which item you're looking at. Some are locked in, some are variable.
If I may. Thank you for that, Luke. You answered one of my questions, which was, are we sure there's water there? The fob and all that. So that's basically for the long term of the project, right? Like it's not something that just disappears, or is that just security in the sense that as the project's ongoing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, that's permanent. As with any of our buildings, we install fobs for access control, and that'll be there for the end of time.
Okay, and one last one, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Charging station, I'm interested in that. Do we have any vehicles that need to be charged? Because I was looking at the prices going, okay, so, where are we at with that, I guess? And that may be out of your department, I'm not sure.
I can probably answer most of that. So we do have one vehicle in the township that's an EV. So the fire department has an electric F-150. So that's the first sort of electric vehicle that the township has purchased. One of the problems we have in the township in terms of looking at moving our fleet towards EV is we don't have the charging infrastructure. So it's sort of one of those things where until you build the charging stations, our operational groups aren't necessarily going to want to adopt that infrastructure because they're not going to have a reliable service that they can provide. So that's part of, it comes back to the climate action plan, and a lot of what we've been talking to that is if we're looking at making these next steps as a township, building out the EV chargers is a part of that. The cost for the charger, I don't think it was in the report, but I would note that it was $7,000 to install a level 2 charger. So that's not necessarily a driver here of any of the overall project costs.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further questions for clarification, I would entertain a motion. Deputy Mayor?
I move that the report from the Engineering and Environment Division, April 22nd, 2025, additional budget request 2025-8 County Road 4 Parks Garage Washroom addition be received, and 2, that council authorize a transfer of funds for development charges to cost center 210008 in the amount of $150,000 to cover the budget shortfall.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Budrick. Any comments from the mover?
No.
Seconder? Other members? Call the question. All in favor? Motion has passed. Thank you. So the next item is to go into committee of the whole. I would entertain a motion to do that. Councillor Budrick?
Motion that we move into committee of the whole.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Parks. Call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed.
Committee of the Whole to order at 6:54. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, items for consideration, 13.3.1, draft 2024 to 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I will start with the manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we actually have our consultants who will be doing a presentation online. So I'll just look to our clerk who's going to bring them online. Our consultants are through Think Design and Miha Kelly. So we have Leandra, who is our lead consultant from Think Design, and Mary Catherine, who will be leading our presentation this evening. Here's Leandra.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Ms. Ferguson, please proceed.
All right, I will share my screen. Okay. How is that for everybody?
Very good.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you all for being with us still. So my name is Leandra Coriali Ferguson, as Carrie mentioned. I'm an associate at Think Design and a planner. We're a planning and architecture firm, landscape architecture firm that focuses on parks and recreation master planning. And I'm joined by Mary Catherine Mihak from Mihak Kelly and Associates. Mary Catherine, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm not sure where I went on the my video's on, but anyway, hi, I'm Mary Catherine Mihak, and I'm with Mihak Kelly and Associates. I'm a Parks and Recreation Services planner, worked in the field for many, many years, and I've been working with Think on a number of Parks and Recreation master plans, waterfront feasibility studies over the past 10 years, and I'm joining them again on Loyalist Township's master plan.
Thank you, Mary Catherine.
So tonight, we'll begin with a project overview, the purpose of a master plan, the project phases and scope. Briefly, we'll touch on the consultation approach and what we heard, and the strategic directions for the master plan. Then we'll give an overview of recommendations from each service area, as well as implementation considerations and costing. Project overview. This is an image from the open house as well. We had some activity sheets for children, so we got everybody involved. So the purpose of a master plan. It's a guiding long-term document to guide the planning and provision of parks and recreation services for the next 10 years. It develops recommendations using data from surveys, interviews, facility use, facility schedules, budget considerations, broader trends, etc. It's an important tool for budgeting purposes, and as such, it should be viewed as a living document to be updated and adjusted throughout the annual budget planning process. The recommendations may be advanced, delayed, or amended to respond to changing circumstances. Some initiatives will require additional community consultation to arrive at detailed plans and designs, because again, this is a high-level guiding document. And council, in consultation with staff, will determine when and how initiatives are actually implemented. And we'll touch on this a bit more at the end when I'm talking about implementation. So there were 3 project phases. The first phase was background review and community consultation. That took place starting at the end of 2023. It culminated in a consultation and community priorities report. So that summarized all the feedback we received, and it also appended the detailed survey results. So that is all available. Then we moved into the draft plan. That underwent a few iterations between the consulting team and staff in order to get us to where we are now with this final draft. So we're in the final phase. We are presenting. After this, the plan will be posted online for the community and stakeholders to view, provide further feedback before it's eventually finalized. A bit more about the consultation approach.
We did a random telephone survey of 300 households. We typically include this as we consider it a representative sample that gives a realistic picture of the community as a whole, because with the random sample, it includes both non-users and users of parks and recreation services. So you get a true sense of what the whole community feels are the needs and priorities for Parks and Rec. It's a good balance for the other types of consultation, like the open house and online survey, that typically attracts people that are already very interested in parks and recreation. So as I mentioned, we did the open house. We held that on Family Day at the WJH in order to try and capture as many people as possible. It was very successful. We had an online survey, 664 respondents, which is we consider to be a good response rate for a township of this size. And township staff also conducted additional youth engagement. We did 19 interviews with counselors and municipal staff, as well as 8 stakeholder interviews. That was also small groups. So that's partners, potential partners, user groups, community clubs, etc. And then finally, there was a user group survey. That's a survey that's specifically designed for user groups to talk about their needs with regard to facilities and how they see their program growing and working with the township. So of course, that was a lot of consultation activities. So I can't summarize everything tonight, but there were some key things that we could pull out that we heard across the board. We heard them repeatedly and from a wide variety of stakeholders. And they are a need for more indoor recreation space in order to provide more programming and more time slots as well, particularly gymnasium space. There's a desire for more equitable distribution of recreation opportunities, so a bit of a decentralization from how it currently is in focus in Amherst View. In terms of specific amenities, splash pad, dog parks, skate park and pump track, trails, and pickleball. I'm sure none of those are a surprise to you. We definitely heard that there's an interest in more outdoor recreation. Attracting and retaining staff is both a challenge and something that needs to be considered in the next 10 years. And that larger expenditures should occur in mid to late term. There shouldn't be any excessively large expenditures within the first 5 or 6 years. This graph that I included, the question was to residents, of these topics, which one would you like the township to provide to give less focus on, the same amount of focus as you currently do, or more focus? And what I wanted to highlight here was the light purple. That means people wanted more focus in those areas. And we had trail development and outdoor programs were the 2 really big ones. So that's just showing that desire for more outdoor opportunities. And then the other one was indoor programs. So that's echoing this need for indoor recreation space. Okay, so from all of what we heard from the community and doing the background contextual review, we came up with 7 strategic directions, which echo a lot of what I've already spoke about. So the first one is to provide equitable recreation opportunities across the township, bringing more to Bath and Odessa and supporting opportunities on Amherst Island. Number 2 is align service provision with population growth. The township is expected to see the most residential growth of all municipalities in the county. So just acknowledging that with that will become more demand for more services. Improve, increase, and modernize existing amenities and facilities. So we heard there was a lack of indoor, I think this is referring specifically to indoor municipal facilities, and limited access to non-municipal facilities such as schools. There's a limited amount of time they can be accessed, and also the cost of accessing them was also a concern. There was also a number of playgrounds and park amenities that were overdue for renewal. Align staff recruitment, training, and retention with the increased demand and expected programs and services. So additional staffing will be required to grow services, and acknowledging that there are challenges related to recruitment and retention that need to be addressed. Number 5 is to grow support for facilities, parks, and recreation service delivery through partnerships and fundraising to ease the burden on residents. Taxes, capital funding, and grants alone will not be sufficient to meet the community's needs within the 10-year timeframe. Make decisions on ongoing topics of discussion, such as those amenities I mentioned previously, and support unstructured outdoor recreation opportunities, which is something we heard in consultation and is also something that we see as a broader trend in Parks and Rec. Recommendations. So now we'll go by service area and we'll give a brief overview of recommendations. This is not every single recommendation. We've just pulled out some key ones, starting with recreation program and events. So the first topic was geographic approach to provision. Amherst View, it's recommended to remain as a main hub. It makes sense as that's where the majority of the population is, as well as the facilities required to provide a lot of those programs are located there. But at the same time, there should be an increase in the amount of programs provided in Bath and Odessa, specifically for seniors and youth. That's because those are two groups that we heard are in need, and they're also two groups that particularly benefit from having local opportunities, as they may not be as mobile to get around to different places. Amherst Island, we heard that the Amherst Island Recreation Association is doing a great job. There doesn't seem to be any concerns with that current arrangement, so it should continue and continue to work together to provide those services and ensure each community has unstructured outdoor recreation opportunities for all ages. That will supplement any discrepancies in the types of programs that are offered. You can still provide recreation services in this way. And this links to parks, so we're getting at outdoor spaces and facilities and amenities. Certain areas for development, preschool, children and youth. In particular, active wellness, camps, and after-school programs were commonly requested and needed, as well as all ages, so programs where people can participate together like as a family, and again, unstructured opportunities. Adults and seniors, is expanding these program areas is limited by program space. So one space is available for adults. There should be an expand in high demand programs, and also switch to offering fitness as a registered program. For seniors, we heard that both physical and non-physical activities are equally needed. So when facility space is available, those should also be expanded. Outdoor activities. Some options are to move existing programs outdoors. Looking at the current inventory of programs, there's lots of opportunities that it'd be quite simple to move these programs outdoors in nice weather. So that's a pretty easy way to start offering more things outdoors. Explore new additions to outdoor programming. The plan does include some discussions, some ideas, as well as ideas for developing the come out and play trailer. And Parks and Recreation events hold sport, active, wellness, and park-based events in each community. I will pass it over to Mary Catherine now to take you through facilities.
Thanks, Leandra. Can you advance the slide to the first one? William J. Henderson Recreation Center. Well, the ongoing work at William J. Henderson and other initiatives to be completed during the master plan will likely advance the potential to develop the phase 2 component of WJH to the next master plan, which would be 2035 to 45. But during the term of this plan, we can begin on the groundwork to anticipate that. But that would be later in the term of this plan. So the groundwork would comprise updating the 2018 feasibility study to confirm the potential facility additions noted in this plan, and to develop a design concept in consultation with the community that aligns with the phase 1 renewal project as constructed, and updates the costs associated with the project's second phase, because they will definitely be different some distance down the road. And this opportunity can also be taken to start exploring some collaborations and partnerships with non-municipal parties that might be interested in helping to develop and program the phase 2 portion of the complex when it's complete. And the key potential facilities that should be considered at that time are a gymnasium, a track, fitness facilities, more multipurpose space, social event and meeting space, a commercial kitchen, and possibly a second ice pad, depending on how the current ice pad is used in the interim, and if there's any evidence of need to provide a second one. Next slide, please. So in view of the need to defer a potential phase 2 development at the recreation center, this master plan focuses on increasing access to various spaces throughout the municipality and optimizing the use of these to expand services to residents township-wide, to provide local communities with a facility focus, and to better serve rural areas throughout Loyalist. So the facility needs and locations and service areas are shown in the slide. There was interest in a shared youth drop-in and senior center, which has been identified for a potential provision at 177 Upper Park Road, which is the LAC, the Amherst Community Hall and Alliance Den, and the Community Sharing Center. And the plan suggests that this facility collectively should be renamed to reflect its community function. And that's something that can occur at any time. And the service for this would be township-wide. Community rooms with required upgrades or for a range of general programming are needed. And we look to those in Wilton, Bath, the fire hall, the new community fire hall, Layer Cake Hall, in consultation with the library, to serve township-wide needs, as well as those in Wilton, Bath, and rural areas. And the school board gyms for active recreation and spaces for general programming are important because there is no municipal gym at this time. And the township has been working on establishing agreements with leases and reciprocal use agreements with both boards. So now there is access to 11 schools in or near Loyalist that can serve the needs throughout the township for both township-wide programs, those on Elmhurst Island, Odessa, Bath, as well as rural areas. And this is something that had developed the establishment of the reciprocal agreements, and the lease was developed while we were preparing the plan. So that will definitely help in the short term and the medium term before new facilities can be provided. Next slide, please. So recommended outdoor facility for ball diamonds, recommended improvements include rehabilitating Willie Pratt Fields, which is actually addressed in the current budget to happen within the next few years, and to prepare comprehensive conditions assessments for all other ball diamonds and an annual work program to upgrade and repair them as required. And that will help catch up on some of the backlog of capital requirements, as well as anticipate needs as you go along. And also to anticipate replacing the 2 junior Limestone District School Board diamonds when they are decommissioned by the board, which is something that is anticipated to happen. So these facilities will serve township-wide needs, and the recommendations comprise both improvements to existing facilities, potential replacements, and monitoring use of all facilities to verify demand for additions to supply. Next slide, please. So for soccer fields, they also serve township-wide needs, and the recommendations focus on improving use of existing facilities for soccer and other field sports before considering new additions to supply. So we're looking again at, as part of the conditions assessment, to prepare comprehensive assessments for each of the fields and an annual work program to upgrade and repair them as required, and to accommodate youth participation increases on underused adult field if needed, if youth participation increases. And if adult use rebounds, to provide up to one additional multi-use field for diverse field sports, and to assess the cost of renovating underused field into multi-purpose fields and promote them as such for a wider range of uses, including those outside the municipality. Next slide, please. And finally, outdoor courts. Well, these are fairly specific in terms of balancing access to both tennis and pickleball courts throughout the township and anticipating the need for additional courts if participation levels increase. So one of the first recommendation is to build 2 lit tennis courts in Odessa, and anticipating potential to add courts to support club development by providing the space if it should be needed, and monitoring use of all courts to determine the need to co-locate additional facilities, relocating the Bath tennis court to the new facility in Odessa, and converting the Bath courts to 8 single-use pickleball courts, and to provide 4 new casual use pickleball courts within the Amherst View West Secondary Plan area. And back to Leandra for Parks and Trails.
All right, thank you. Okay, Parks and Trails. So the Parks and Trails assessment included some general recommendations overall, including park classification updates, recommendations related to parkland acceptance, so aiming to provide more sizable community parks with more amenities rather than many small neighborhood parks. Improve naming conventions by using only one unique name to refer to each park, and do not name facilities within the park separately. And it also provided guidance for when to accept parkland dedication versus cash in lieu. It also identified the need for a waterfront master plan that covers a number of topics that require attention, some of which are listed here. The potential relocation or redesign of the township boat launch at Finkel Shore, the inclusion of a non-motorized watercraft dock, so kayak and canoes, on the mainland, management of waterfront-based tourism, safety concerns such as busy road crossings, off-road waterfront trail development, water quality and water access, and if needed, the acquisition of additional waterfront open space. So the recommendation here was to do a waterfront master plan. Now, for the rest of the slides, I've summarized some key recommendations organized by settlement area. So for Odessa, some of the key recommendations are for Centennial Park to develop a trail, to do some naturalization, and add a dog park. For Skater Park, we've recommended to monitor the number of ice days and introduce programming in the warmer months, and consider a refrigerated pad in the late term. That would be dependent on the results of that monitoring of the ice days. And also the refrigerated pad that we recommended is not for the entire surface, because that would be exorbitant. It's just for a portion of the surface, large enough to do some programming and skating and play on. It was identified that Odessa does need a community park. It doesn't really have a full community park by the parkland classification definition. So we recommended developing one that would have a pump track in the mid to late term. And we've identified potentially working with the Odessa Ag Society to site the park at the fairgrounds as the preferable option for consideration. For Amherst View, Willie Pratt design. So Mary Catherine already mentioned the ball diamonds. So when there are a number of components that require attention in a park, a design is required. So the recommendation is for a design of Willie Pratt that includes consideration for the orientation of the sports fields, support amenities, so that would be shade, seating, washrooms, accessibility and circulation around the site, storage, etc. Similarly, we recommended a design for Loyalist Park that will include the proposed skate park and pump track that's already in discussion. Continuing to support Loyalist Park as a community event space, accessible washrooms, storage, parking, etc. to support those uses. In the Amherst View West secondary plan area, Mary Catherine already mentioned pickleball courts. So we have added to that a second dog park. So when the new parks are developed in this area, we are recommending that these facilities are sited there. And the benefit of saying this now is that there are sometimes conflicts with these facilities and neighboring residents, particularly pickleball, because it can be noisy. So it's hard to just insert new pickleball courts in any park. So the benefit of identifying the need now is that these parks can be planned such that you reduce negative impacts. For the Lakeside Pond subdivision, if possible, we recommend developing a trail loop around the pond. For Amherst Island, we focused on the Gowan property, which we've sort of split into two portions. So there's the Gowan property adjacent to the school. We understand that there's been some talk about a multi-sport court, but that consultation hasn't yet been conducted. So we recommend working with the Amherst Island Recreation Association to develop a design that includes consultation and confirms that there is a need and a want from the community for that, and then to design it for the site. And then for the waterfront Gowan property, there was a consultation already conducted by staff. We reviewed what the community said, and from that, as well as reviewing the site and what would be suitable there, we recommend developing it as a passive waterfront park that would include, for example, seating, shade structure or gazebo, a fishing area, maybe a paddle craft launch, so that's just for kayaks or canoes, maybe some tree planting, that sort of thing. And for Bath, we recommend that Bath Park be redesigned as a district park. So right now it's more fulfilling the role of a community park. This is the preferred location for the splash pad. So with that, it would become a district park. So that would require a design, siting the splash pad, accessible washrooms, shade structure, parking storage, etc. Aura by the Lake, we reviewed what was currently proposed as the parkland for that development. And we recommend, if possible, that the township attempt to secure a more preferable parcel that would be adjacent to Briscoe Park. And that would just align with our previous recommendations to try to get larger community parks that will have a better value for the community as opposed to smaller, irregularly shaped parcels that are scattered around. And back to Mary Catherine for service delivery.
Thanks, Leandra. Next slide, please. So the service delivery looks at it's very two quick slides that kind of summarize everything with respect to what needs to be done to support all of the provision of what's gone before in terms of substantive services. And the first slide talks about volunteers, collaborations, and policies. So working with the heritage, culture, tourism within the municipality is to develop and implement a Parks and Recreation Division volunteer program, which will be important, essential really to having the resources available to deliver services. And the second one is expanding collaborations and partnerships to develop facilities and deliver programs, services, which should be backed by agreements. And examples of these types of endeavors include working with organizations such as the Kingston Sport and Social Club, school boards, Special Olympics, J-Care Field of Dreams, and others to support municipal provision of facilities and services. Updating existing and developing new policies to support service provision and delivery. So examples of that would include things like developing a service pricing policy, a community group affiliation policy, storage policy, and incorporating climate actions from the Climate Action Plan in facility plans and development. New revenue generating programs. Examples include facility naming rights and sponsorship, donations, and commercial kitchen rentals to local food producers, which would enhance the revenue generating initiatives that are already in place in the township. Next slide, please. That should not say volunteers again. It should just say planning and marketing. Oh, yes. Further development and implementation service planning is required to monitor and evaluate capacity to align service provision with verified community needs. So in other words, people ask for things, not necessarily with the awareness that there are existing facilities that can be better used before moving on to considering new facilities. So the use of facilities should be carefully tracked and monitored and judged whether or not real new services or new spaces are actually required, or existing ones can be put to better use. And to establish an ongoing service planning and evaluation process that includes the community, partners that you work with, partners you will be working with, so that everybody can work together to coordinate what they're doing with the municipality leading the way. And also to continue to develop marketing efforts and communication tools to inform the community about what's going on and to promote services. One particular recommendation there was for the township to produce an annual update report to the community. It can just be an infographic as to what has been achieved in the Parks and Recreation Division, so that people can see how how their tax dollars are being spent, and to identify steps to completing the master plan over the long term. And I think we still have one section left. Leandra?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So lastly, implementation. So the implementation strategy, that section of the plan, it lists all of the recommendations and it identifies if they should be implemented in short, medium, or late term, and includes costs where applicable. In total, there's 157 recommendations. 22 involve studies and designs. 41 involve capital costs. When doing the cost and budgeting, we considered if there is an immediate need. We identified in that table I described if it's an operating cost, a capital cost, or a study. And we've shown if it's a one-time or ongoing cost. In terms of staff resources, parks over the term of the plan may need to add operations staff. However, we didn't cost that and include specifics on that because it really depends on what is implemented and when. So the last bullet here is flexibility. So that's one of the areas where we had to be flexible. Facility staff, the WGH validation report already outlined some specific facility staff recommendations. So that was covered there. And then program staff is similar to parks. There's some recommendations in there, as well as for new instructors will likely be needed when you're able to expand programs. But again, that will depend on when you're expanding and what the programs are. So again, being flexible there. In terms of cost, so keeping in mind what we heard earlier about not doing any large expenditures in the medium short term, the costs increase as you go to the late term. So at least in the short term and then up from there. We've also included or tried to include inflation in here. We typically don't do that because it's very hard to estimate that. But after discussing with staff, we felt that that might be a good approach just to get a better sense of what we're really looking at. So that number in the late term, that's not $20-25. That's an estimate for $20-34. And I think that is everything I wanted to say on this one. You'll notice that facilities, the expenditures are not extremely high. That's because you've already just completed the very large WJH renewal or are completing it, and we've pushed that phase 2 to be in the next term. So that's, if you're wondering why it's not very high, that would be why. And then your larger expenditures are in parks and trails. Okay. Thank you. And we'll take questions if you have any.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So I'll turn to the committee now for questions, comments. Who am I starting with? Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the report, and thanks to the recreation people here at Loyalist. I have all kinds of comments, but I'm gonna try and narrow it down to three. Obviously, we need to move towards working with non-municipal parties, and I know that the staff here is working with different organizations to try and provide programming. The trails piece, I'm concerned, I can't remember what the money was, but it seems a lot to me to pay. And you mentioned on page 55 of your report about working with conservation authorities. And I'll just correct you, and there's a lot of people that have the misconception. Parrots Bay, it belongs to Cataraqui Conservation Authority, not the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. And that does have quite an existence of trails. And I know this has nothing to do, but in some of the residents' comments, they talked about Parrots Bay. There's no map. And I went out there today and checked it. It's got a beautiful laid out map. And I guess my question is, in terms of trails, are we looking at trying to develop trails within already built up areas or something fresh? Because sometimes it's hard to, for example, Amherst, part of my ward, it's hard to place a 2025 sort of frame of mind into something that was built in the 50s and 60s. And I'm just, in terms of that money, where do you see that, the trail development, I guess, is what I would ask.
Sure, I can answer that. So the recommendations for trails that we've included are within parks. So we haven't recommended any that are connecting through residential areas. They are just within sort of trail loops within parks. The only one that might be similar to what you're thinking that requires some land assembly and different landowners would be that waterfront trail. But that is something that we feel needs to be looked at through the waterfront master plan.
Okay, thank you. A couple of specifics. So I'm really curious about developing a playground replacement plan, and the dollar value is 900,000. That seems pretty high if it's just a plan, or is that a plan plus something I'm not aware of in that statement, I guess?
That is including estimated capital costs. So that is building in a plan with the budget to upgrade playgrounds regularly throughout the 10 years in order to get all the aged playgrounds replaced.
And just a couple of quick ones. And I understand and I support the idea of, you know, we've just gone through a big reconstruction of the arena and pool facilities. And I'm just wondering about the volleyball court being so far down the line, but it seems to be the cheapest item. And I don't need a report in front of me as a counselor to know. I just drive into Kingston and see during the summer, there's two volleyball courts, probably 2 kilometers from our eastern border. They're full every night. So why push that so back in your timeline? I think that's one that could be done immediately.
Okay, yeah, so for that one, we've recommended actually doing temporary volleyball courts to start, and that can go right away because it's pretty easy to stick up some nets on a flat piece of grass. So we've recommended starting with that and running some programs and see how it takes off. And that's why we've pushed the courts a little bit further down. But if it's very successful, that sort of goes back to that flexibility piece. If you start with those temporary nets and it's really, you know, very successful and the community likes it, staff can come and say, okay, we want to move this one up. Do you know, this year or whatever.
2 more. I know. I'm just going to make a statement more. It's not a question, but and I think I can speak that most of my colleagues here would agree that we've been talking to the MTO since 2017 about something to cross Bath Road at Fairfield Park, and I just wish there was some way we could get that done, but that's out of our ballpark. I guess the last thing I'll say is when I look at the overall, and your last slide basically said 22 studies and design versus 41 capital projects. You know, I have a problem with more studies and more studies and more studies. I think sometimes maybe the studies, like I'll say if we have to do a volleyball study, you know, it's 30 grand to build one. How much are we going to spend on a study? And that's just my own comment here. No question or no answer expected. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Willis.
Through the chair, thank you very much for your report. Going back to the survey that was done where residents said they wanted less, more, or the same, was there any control questions in that survey that measured if they were aware of what we were already doing?
No, there is not.
No. Okay. Other questions? Councillor Willis would like to know what a pump track is.
A pump track, like a BMX track. Sometimes they're dirt, sometimes they're asphalt, and they kind of go like this, and you can use a scooter and a bike. Yeah, people of all ages like them. They can be small, they can be big. Sometimes there's little jumps.
They like to be stunt devils.
Yeah.
Councillor Broderick.
Be very quick, sir.
All right.
I want to also commend you. I like the idea of some of the funding streams being cut off in some of our programs after 2 years. Because I do think that at some point, certain organizations or groups can't come back every year and expect to get the same thing when there may be other community groups looking for something.
Other comments? Questions? Mr. Mayor.
I just have a couple of questions. Under the service delivery, there was the last, well, might not be, no, it's not the last statement. It would be helpful to have volunteer support for parks and recreation services. I'm assuming, does that mean we already do have a number of community volunteers that help? Are you looking for something more than community volunteers, or is that enhancement of the community volunteers?
That would be an enhancement of the pool, I guess, of volunteers that are available to help, particularly as you try to expand services. You'll likely need more volunteers, and that's always a problem. But you know, it's something to work towards nonetheless.
Thank you. The other question I had was PE 21. It talks about discontinue memberships and offer registered programs. Could you just elaborate a little bit on what the differences in those are?
Sure. So the membership was a monthly, so unlimited. So you pay amount and you can come to any drop-ins. But what we heard that this was very difficult for staff to administer and inefficient. And so it was recommended that it move to a registered program. So in that case, a resident would register for the same time weekly, and they would go to that one class every week. And that way you have a guaranteed instructor and a guaranteed amount of participants. Whereas with the drop-in classes, you don't have a guaranteed, you don't know that you're going to have a full class. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. That's all.
Councillor Willis.
It's a money question. So the plan as we saw it is budgeted to be $23 million or about $2.3 million a year. The question is more for staff, I think, that is any of that money already money that we're spending? Is it maintenance money that we're spending? Is it money that we'd already would be planning to do with capital, those kind? Is this new money that we have to find?
Through you, Mr. Chair, some of that capital, the majority of that is capital. Some of that is already identified in the 10-year capital plan that was presented with budget this year, i.e. Willie Pratt, the rehabilitation of that. Some of the playgrounds are already identified in there. So there is projects already identified in there that are identified in the Parks and Rec master plan. Some of it is new money as well. So it is a mix of both.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Councilor Potter.
I want to get a shot at Manager Lamb before she leaves us. And you may not have this answer off the top of your head, and understand that. The adult soccer, have we lost, I guess, bookings because of the new fields on, or not the old field, new fields, but the bar complex? Because I know my son plays in that league. They're always playing at bar, it seems.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I took a drive out to bar last year and it wasn't being maintained. So not sure what's actually happening at those fields this upcoming season. We have not seen a resurgent of adult soccer post-COVID. It is something that we would like to see come about. We've had several meetings with our minor soccer group trying to revive minor soccer in the township. Certainly it is a sport that has not rebounded both minor and adult post-COVID. So it is a focus for staff, both for all ages. So it is something that we would like to see come back around. It is a need. Unfortunately, our fields are not being maximized to what they should be. So if anybody has any connections within the adult soccer world that they'd like to point towards staff's way, we would love to set up some meetings and have some conversations.
It's okay, Councilor Broderick. It is committee of the whole. I'm just teasing. Anyone else? I do see that we have a recommendation. Councilor Willis.
I move that the report from the Community and Customer Services Department, Recreation and Facilities Division dated April 22nd, 2025, read the draft 2024 to 2033 Parks and Recreation Master Plan be received. 2, that Committee of the Whole endorse the draft 2024 to 2023 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and that the plan may be made available to the community for final comments. And 3, that the final version with the community comments attached separately be presented to council for endorsement.
So move. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Mover, comments.
No, thank you to staff and the consultants for an excellent report.
Seconder. Anyone else? Just echo those comments. Of course, it's incredibly thorough and comprehensive, and no one should be in any doubt how invested Loyalist Township is in providing recreation to our residents. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Mr. Mayor, seconded by Councilor Willis. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned Committee of the Whole at 7:43.
Okay, so we'll reconvene the council meeting. The next item up, are there any notices of motion to be shared this evening? Seeing none, are there any direct motions to be presented this evening? Seeing none, we have the consent agenda before us. Are there any items the council wishes to extract? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor.
I move that all items in the consent agenda dated April 22nd, 2025 be approved as presented and that the necessary action be taken.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. Comments from the mover, the seconder? Any other members? Councillor Budrick.
Wasn't really worth pulling out, but in 15.4, I just would like to recognize the volunteers stepping forward to assume those extra items on their daily jobs.
Thank you. With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is passed. We're down to announcements. I actually have an announcement that I'd like to lead off with. It's regarding the strong mayor powers that have been granted to Loyalist. As many of you are aware, Ontario is proposing to expand strong mayor powers to the heads of council in 169 additional municipalities effective May 1st, 2025, to help deliver on provincial priorities such as building more homes, transit, and other infrastructure across Ontario. These powers have been given to municipalities with councils of 6 or more. Thus, Loyalist Township is included, as are many of our neighboring municipalities such as Greater Napanee, Stone Mills, and South Frontenac. The Mayor of Kingston actually received these powers on July 1st, 2023. The strong mayor powers and duties include choosing to appoint the municipality's chief administrative officer, hiring municipal department heads and establishing and reorganizing departments, creating committees of council, assigning their functions, and appointing the chairs and vice chairs of committees of council. Proposing the municipal budget, which would be subject to council amendments and a separate head of council veto and council override process. Proposing certain municipal bylaws if the mayor is of the opinion that the proposed bylaw could potentially advance a provincial priority identified in regulation. Council can pass these bylaws if more than 1/3 of council members vote in favor. Vetoing certain bylaws if the head of council is of the opinion that all or part of the bylaw could potentially interfere with a provincial priority. Bringing forward matters for council consideration if the head of council is of the opinion that considering the matter could potentially advance a provincial priority. The province is providing these enhanced powers in an effort to cut red tape and accelerate the delivery of key provincial priorities in communities. I have now had time to review this information and want to make this statement. I do not believe that I, as mayor, need these powers to accelerate provincial priorities. Since the last election, this council has worked collaboratively to set the strategic direction for our community, including building strong communities, having sustainable infrastructure and services, balanced growth, and ensure organizational effectiveness. We have delivered on expanding transit, building infrastructure to support growth in our municipality, and established an action plan to utilize Housing Accelerator Fund money to build more homes quicker. I believe that the current structure of our decision-making is working well and that council and staff are committed to achieving these priorities. While these powers have not yet come into force and effect, I do not see any reason to change my leadership style or utilize these strong mayor powers. As such, I intend to delegate authority that I receive back to council and the CAO where possible. As stated previously, these additional powers will not change how I represent the residents and businesses of Loyalist Township. I don't believe this will have a noticeable impact on township business, so do not intend to make an issue of the authority being granted or making a personal request they be removed. This is, the way I see it, the ever-evolving roles and responsibilities within municipal life, which is greatly dictated by the province. I look forward to continuing to work with my council colleagues and staff on issues that are important to our community. Thank you. So I just wanted to make sure that I made the public statement, both for anyone in the virtual or that would be reading or watching this in the future. The powers were granted. It took us, I immediately started discussing it with some key staff and the deputy and I had different conversations as well. And I wanted to make sure that I just publicly stated what my stand was with the powers that have been granted. Thank you. Are there other statements or comments this evening? Councillor Broderick.
I can't let Ms. Lamb go without thanking her for her years of service to the township. Carrie and I have had many interesting discussions, both in my previous role as president of minor hockey and as a counselor, and I wish you luck, and I know that Belleville's better off, and I'll see you on the third Friday night for a little U21 game. I'll bring you a Loyalist shirt. Thanks for your time, Carrie.
Other announcements this evening? Deputy Mayor?
Just on the mayor's statement, again, I can also say for the public record that that AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, is addressing some of the challenges that the strong mayor powers present for municipalities from our perspective. Again, when you're in an MOU kind of relationship with the province, it doesn't serve to drag the conversation through the mud in the media. Also, it should be noted that we have a third term majority government that's only just getting started, and I hate to tell everybody, but this will not be the last time there is provincial initiative that gets municipalities' hackles up. So I'll just say the issue is being addressed with the province, with the ministry. We have a new minister of municipal affairs and housing, so that's an ongoing conversation. I'll remove my AMO hat for a second and say that from a personal perspective, I think it's worth, since the mayor's gone to the trouble of making a statement, it's worth naming some of the aspects of the powers that are problematic. The first of which, the giving of the powers in the first place presuppose that that democracy is ineffectual and that you need strong executive powers to get anything done. And in the same way that I make the argument that we don't make government a business because otherwise we wouldn't provide half the services we provide. In the same vein, we do democracy because we believe morally and principally that people should have a right to make or influence the decisions that affect them. That's why we do democracy. And, in our upper orders of government, over the last several decades, there's been a gradual centralization of power in both the Prime Minister's office and the Premier's office. And it undermines the collective decision-making of cabinet government, which is the basis of our system. And we at the municipal level still have that intact. And quite frankly, I think it's worth preserving the idea that collective decision-making can be an effective form of government. And that's exactly what the mayor said in relation to our council. Our council has been an effective council in making those making those decisions. The other thing I worry about is the politicization of the role of senior staff, particularly the CAO. I see as an unforeseen consequence there that municipalities will be on the hook for a lot more money to retain CAOs because their jobs will be a lot more precarious. Again, we will be on the hook for that. I also see it as an unforeseen consequence that you will end up seeing certain candidates running for mayor that have the backing of particular interest groups in a municipality. So, I mean, those are just a few off the top of my head. There's lots. I do hope that the government will be amenable to, rethinking some of its approach to this. And lastly, the last comment I will make too is that it is, in my view, a particular ideological direction of this particular government to double down on the notion that municipalities are a creature of the province. And of course, we are constitutionally, we are. There's no way around that. But I would say in the last several decades that municipal governance in Ontario certainly has moved in the direction of making municipalities a respected order of government in their own right. And this legislation basically suggests that we're just here to do the province's bidding. And again, constitutionally, we are creatures of the province, but at the same time, I do not see it as our sole exclusive responsibility to do the province's bidding. We are a respected order of government, and we know how to make decisions. And we make those decisions collectively as bodies. And I would, I would like to see that preserved. So anyway, for the record, I think those are some preliminary concerns.
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening? Being none, I just wanted to mention, we had the egg hunt in Amherst-View. Very well attended, sold out quickly. Over 500 children participated in the egg hunt. And along with the OPP were there, the fire department was there, there were the Lions Club, everybody was taking part. Everyone had a good time. So I wanted to acknowledge the staff that did a lot of work to make it happen, the support from council to allow it to happen, and everybody, all the volunteers, everybody that came to set up the booths and help make it a full event. And it was interesting this year talking to some of the volunteers. Won't give any names, but there was a young gentleman there, and biggest smile you could ever believe, just loving the fact that he was volunteering in his community. He's said that I think this was the third or fourth event he'd volunteered in, and he's loving it more every time. And when I walked across the room, I met his son, and his son was just as ecstatic to be there. And this is be a high school aged young man. And I thought, there's what keeps it running. All the volunteers that step up, hence my question about volunteers during the Recreation Master Plan. There were so many volunteers that worked so hard to make that happen and to make sure that everyone enjoyed themselves. So big shout out to everyone involved. It was a great event, and the community is better off for it. If there's no further announcements, I would entertain a motion for the confirmatory bylaw. Deputy Mayor?
I move that bylaw 2025-37 to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Loyalist Township be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign and seal.
So moved, seconded by Councillor Parks. All in favor? Motion is passed. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Broderick.
I move to adjourn at 7:58.
So moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in favor?